Hi, and welcome to Ask the Manager. Today we have our chair of the Finance Committee with us, Vikram Chhabra, and of course our wonderful town manager. And before we get started, I just want to say the Garden Club has done a phenomenal job with all of the plantings and decorations throughout the town. They've done a wonderful job, and I just think they need to be recognized for that. So thank you for all of you who do that. I have a friend who wanted me to join, and I said I don't do yard work. I'd be a bad member. So, but I do admire it every time I go through the center of town, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that, Vikram, I'll let you start with the first question for.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure. It's a great honor to be on your show. Good to see you as
Good to
always,
see you,
Kevin.
Vikram.
Yeah, we have a lot of interaction in the
Yeah,
finance committee, so
Absolutely.
this is going to be a fun session. I know a lot of inside stories about Kevin. So.
Oh, by the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers won
They
yesterday,
did, and the Patriots won.
and the
Oh yeah,
Patriots won.
it's amazing. I had given up on the Patriots, but
No,
yeah.
you can't give up. And that was probably the first time in a long time I was actually wanting the Steelers to win.
It
So
makes losing makes winning feel better.
true.
So, Kevin, I wanted to talk a little bit on the strategic plan.
Sure.
It's this, for the people who are watching, it's this amazing document. It's a living document that your team as well as this board of select persons have developed, and it's divided into a set of achievable goals and a set of aspirations. You very clearly in the document, it's very clearly specified that some of these are achievable, some of them are aspirational, and I love the way that it's broken out into five different sections. And the first is which I want to talk a little bit about, is engagement and connection. So that's always been a repetitive question in our town, that how do we engage more people? How do we create that environment? It's just not about sending, I mean, we keep on sending letters and emails and all that, but what are the sort of aspirations you have, or what do you think we've achieved as a town in terms of reaching that goal?
Yeah, I still think, we're probably stronger in pushing communications out than receiving. And it's not for a lack of desire of wanting to engage people and have them come in and participate more in the local government. But, I think in some ways we kind of conflict with a lot of other things that are going on in people's lives. And I also hope that people have a high level of trust in what we do, and tune in from time to time when, things are going on, but maybe just don't have the opportunity or the time to come in and engage with us. But we really have taken a multifaceted approach. It is our goal to provide, daily or on the spot, and then weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and quarterly communications going outward. And we've asked residents to engage the most with us on a project-by-project basis, because that's where we see the most opportunity. It's a little bit more tangible, and I think people can get up to speed quicker. You know better than most folks, Vikram, that if you take a look at the budget for the first time, it's $180 million, and it's kind of like, where do you start? But
Right.
so it is our hope through surveys and projects, project by project basis, that we can get people to kind of latch on to something and find their own unique way to contribute to the community. Yeah.
So one thing that I felt like in our last town meeting, the fire engine that from, I think it was 1927, was
26.
26.
Yeah.
So that sense of belongingness in the town, we have a great history in Shrewsbury. We go back to when this 18th century, 1727.
1727.
And over the time, the town has changed so much. I mean, it's different phases, different immigrants coming in.
Yeah.
We had, and even now during the dot-com boom and all that. And this sense of belonging, what do you think the town can do to enhance our sense of history
Yep.
as well as our sense of belonging?
Yeah, I think those are two key important areas to engagement. And one thing that we've seen recently is if you have an event, they will come. And when it comes to this past weekend, even if it rains.
Right.
So we had truck or treat at the town hall, where we combined, a trick or treating like event and former Touch a Truck Day that was kind of isolated at the highway garage. And despite how much rain we received on Saturday, we still had about 1,000 people come out.
Wow.
We went through 300 pumpkins, before we knew it. So I think people are just looking for an opportunity to come together, and we
Right.
heard that through the strategic planning process. I know, the open house night that recently was held by Selco. There was one by the fire department, and then one with the opening of the new police station, and all those had a significant number of people that attended as well. I was at the police station one, and it was great to see so many different people there.
Right.
And when I say different, it's that I don't see at a town meeting, that I don't see at a finance committee
And everybody was
meeting.
happy.
Yeah, and everyone was happy.
Because they were having fun.
Yeah, and it's, it is a good time, and, for someone to come up and ask you a question, or, just say hi, those are all opportunities, I think, that we can do a better job of providing that sense of community for people,
Right.
because we are all here because of the place, right? Because of Shrewsbury. That's what brings us all together. But, it's not, just the bureaucratic aspects of the
Right.
government or the process or the town meeting. It's, we're all people, and looking for ways to socialize and be together, and those community events. And I hope the belonging is, more of an abstract, but I hope everyone just being together in the same space,
Right.
provides that feeling of comfort and safety and all those things that lead to belonging, because it's everyone's community.
Absolutely.
As you said, there's been waves of, immigration in, and for different reasons, and we've all blended throughout the country, and certainly here in Shrewsbury, and you never know when that next wave is starting, and how things will change. So the events are for everyone, and hopefully that's just one opportunity that we have. We of course always encourage people to join a committee or
Right.
run for town meeting, and some of those tasks are a bigger ask. Being insiders that the three of us are, we know it's not, an incredibly overburdening amount of time throughout the course of the year, but it's still a little bit more than just coming out to an event
Absolutely.
or something
Right.
like that. But I think there's many ways for people to come together and help build their own sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It's interesting that
comfort
you
level.
asked that question and talking about the sense of community, because I was thinking, I happen to be of age where I'm eligible to go to the Council on Aging, for example, but I don't. And I can remember my mother, who was with us till she was 97 and a half, said that the Council on Aging was for old people. And she never joined.
Yeah.
But I think that it's an opportunity for people my age to get together and be happy to see one another.
Yes.
Like at the open house at the police station, I got to see people I went to high school with that I hadn't seen in many years, and it was a thrill. And so if there were ways to engage younger seniors to want to go to the senior center, and I don't know what the answer is to that, and I have no suggestions. It's just, I think to myself, here's an opportunity and we're missing it, and why do we have to feel like we're old before we go there, even if we're plenty of age? That's one. Another one is the library, and I think, what am I going to do? Walk into the library just to sit there? It just, there's opportunities, and we're not taking advantage of them for some reason. But those types of community events, even people that just go to the food trucks.
Yep.
That they're there, they look forward to that. The farmers market. So there are activities, and then if you think of places like Key West, they have all these events, and there's all sorts of tourists, but yet there's a strong community there, and they're events may not be what we want in Shrewsbury, but we could probably look at those and say, now how could we make that where it would fit in our town?
Yeah.
And they don't have to be so extravagant where it takes a week and everybody has to prepare for a year to make it happen. It could be a doll carriage parade. It could be an animal event. You know, there's so many different things, but you need people who want to volunteer to do that. And you have a new director, or is she a manager of the Parks and Rec?
Yeah. So
And she's made a difference just with the market,
Yeah.
the farmers market. She made it different this year than what it had been, and people were very happy with it. So we just have to get creative and find the people who want to do it too.
Yeah. I think there's, those events, whether it's a Yuletide event that started a couple years ago, those are all great places for people to just be together and feel part of the community.
But talk about some of the differences that you have or improvements that you've made in just communication alone, because that was one of your goals a few years back, on improving communication to the residents.
Yep.
So talk about some of those methods.
From a frequency standpoint, when we're sharing information, as I said, we try to do it daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly. So we're always trying to have regular communications with residents. We do it through we now have X/Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We have completely revamped the website in and of itself, so hopefully it's more user friendly to folks. We do things like this that we've done for years, Ask the Manager, and we have the Town Manager Download podcast, where we're using that as more of an educational tool to help people maybe dig a little bit deeper into what some departments do on a day-to-day basis. We are also still in the open window of an application process for the Shrewsbury Way Resident Academy. So residents can apply to be part of the first session, which is Sessions, which is a 7-week academy where residents can learn more about local government. We'll touch on every aspect of our operations. We'll have department heads in to talk with folks. It'll be in bite-sized chunks, 20 or 30 minutes for each department. For some of the bigger departments, where activities and events, are easier to put on, say police or fire, we'll hold those events at those stations and give folks tours. And again, just, we hope that people, the more they learn about what it is that we do, the more they trust and understand what's going on in a day-to-day business to support them. But we've tried to be as multifaceted as we can with communications. So the newsletter is mailed, right? But it's also available online. We've actually found using those traditional methods of mailing is some of the most effective, because if you miss our Facebook post, it might not be at the top the next time you get there. But if you get the newsletter, if you can't read it as soon as when you get in the door, if it goes on the table or the countertop, maybe over the weekend you'll pick it up and read and find something that's interesting.
And you have to have Facebook in order to.
Yeah. But the one thing that we have done is put resources in that position, though, right? So we have hired a communications coordinator to manage it. And
who's doing a really good job.
Yeah, so Taylor Galusha is our communications coordinator, and it takes time to build that regular communication and develop the stories for the newsletter. And oftentimes it's harder to narrow what we want to say into the size of the format that we have versus the opposite. So, but it takes resources to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always this section of any population that has this lack of trust of government. And I like some of the things you mentioned, like community events and the open houses for the various departments. So let's take the example of water. We've had a lot of misconceptions about the quality of water in our town, and those of us who are engaged, who are part of government and get to attend talks from the various people who work on it, we know that that's not really the case. So what can we do in a way that people who tend to ignore mails and emails and newsletters and all that, but still have that lack of trust, or don't go to Facebook, or see the wrong messages that are sent out there? Is there some way that we could make a fun event, like a community event, like a tour, or an event at the water plants where we do like the manganese stuff that we do and all that? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're always willing to provide new opportunities for folks. So if it's a tour of the water treatment plant, if
For young children, maybe, for
yeah,
the schools?
yeah, any age really. I mean, those ideas are great, and if people are interested in doing that, we're happy to set those up. Right? We operate the local government, but it's everyone's, right? You know, and we don't let people into the water treatment plant willy nilly, right? But we're happy to provide those tours and be open for people to see that. There's really, I mean, we have nothing to hide, and we want people to understand what it is that is being done on their behalf on a day-to-day basis, because we are really focused. And department heads and staff at every level will tell you, you know, I say it all the time, to be the best local government in the world. That's like, we're really striving to do that. When we're making decisions, we consider, you know, all aspects of the community, you know, the ability, you know, can we afford it? Is it the right thing to do? Is it, you know, a cutting edge innovation that, you know, has some level of proven ability that we can rely upon it and make sure that our investments last as long as they can? We think about all of that, you know, regardless of the size of the decision. So we want folks to engage. I mean, inherently there's going to be folks that don't want to engage and get more joy out of asking questions and not really wanting to be informed. I think that's a very small group.
Right.
I think just one other thought on that topic is, you know, those opportunities to, and I know it's, you know, not the most interesting social conversation to have, but relying upon other residents to help build that trust. It can't just be about us asking people to trust us and sharing information. I think we do a good job at that. But if there is misinformation kind of that, or the opportunity to engage and have dialogue, you know, on a community member to community member basis, that's probably more effective than I ever will be of trying to, you know, convince someone on my own that we're doing the right things.
The people are the government.
Right, exactly. Yep.
The water report just came out recently, and online I noticed you could go to the water department on the second floor at Town Hall and get a copy of the report. So of course I did, and it was interesting. Now, we got a really good report this time. How would you compare that to, say, the last 2 years or the last 5 years?
So our water quality, although we have had issues with manganese discoloration, has always been better than people have thought it would be. But we have really begun tackling some of the more systemic challenges to kind of move from good to great when it comes to water, and those are being reflected in those annual reports. You know, it's sharing the information that we have, trying to, you know, show the independent verification that we can through the DEP, that, you know, we're not just saying that we have the clean water, that we go through a rigorous set of standards. We're in one of the highest categories of the size of our water system. It's the second highest across the entire country. So we meet the toughest standards that we have to, and as we should.
And in that report, Dan Rowley did a really nice job with an introduction, talking about our water system and what's done and the expectations. I thought he did a really nice job with it, and I would recommend that anybody that really has concerns about our water should get one of those reports, which they can also do online, but I like the paper copy myself. So, but there was really, I thought, good information, even just on page 1. And I would say that, you know, people drink bottled water from who knows where.
So much
Well,
plastics in it,
yeah, it just-
microplastics, and who knows what's in it.
Right, and they say, oh no, I don't drink that water. You drink the water out of the faucet? And of course I do, but yet they don't, and it just puzzles me, and it's misinformation.
Absolutely.
And I mean, when I think about communication too, and I think about how we communicate, government traditionally has been slow to adopt, technology and move into realms. So, we government, hesitated to get into the social media space. And even in Shrewsbury, some of our departments in the town in general have just, gotten on Facebook or Instagram within the last year, right? It's 2023. The challenge with that is, like we hear every day, technology and ways of communicating are evolving so fast anymore that we can't really, we can no longer afford for government to lag behind,
Right.
and not be early adopters and not try things. So if we have that trust, people will understand sometimes if we fail, but things just move so fast.
Right.
And we need to be able to evolve at the same level as, private, sector industry, not put the risk factors out there, but be able to, keep up. So.
Absolutely. And that moves me into sort of like you mentioned, want to be one of the best local governments in the country. Many people that I talk to, my neighbors and all that, are not aware that we're a AAA rated town.
Yeah.
And that's something I really wanted to get your comments on. Like,
Yeah.
how did you maintain that? How did we get there? How did you maintain that? What was the struggles?
Yeah.
And what do we need to do to maintain that
Yeah.
rating?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a multifaceted ratings process that we go through, just like any other, entity that's out there, business or private. And we use the same rating agencies, Standard and Poor's. We use S&P rating services. We've been rated in the past by Moody's and as well. But we're currently rated by S&P, and they have a multifaceted approach where they come in and analyze our overall financial conditions and our management approach to managing our the resources that were given by the community. So it took a very serious and dedicated effort for us to go from our AA plus rating to a AAA rating. And we really set out a strategy in 2018 whenever we were getting ready to borrow for the Beale elementary school construction project. That's when we set our sights on a AAA. At the time, I could clearly see that Shrewsbury was a AAA community, and we just had to put that information forward to the ratings companies and prove to them that we were able to meet their tests. So we actually, at that time, invited them in. So we didn't have a conference call with them. We didn't, just send paperwork over to them, which you can kind of get into the practice of just doing. That we invited them in, and we brought all key stakeholders to the table. We brought members of the finance committee, we brought the select board, we brought the school committee, school superintendent, Selco general manager, key department heads all at the table. And we told the story of Shrewsbury and how finances have been managed, where we are headed in the future, how our economic base was going to change, which it really has since 2018, by attracting mixed use development and commercial development within the community. And when it comes to the numbers and cents parts of it, it's really about how much money do we have on reserve, whether that's in unexpended fund balance like free cash, our general stabilization account, or our special stabilization accounts, and being able to prove that if something goes wrong, the economy turns in a downward trend, that we have resources and reserves to continue to provide the services, but mainly meet our debt service obligations that we've committed to. And we certainly have. We're in a much better position now, even in comparison to where we were in 2018 with our total reserve levels. And our debt level really hasn't grown in proportion to our overall ability to pay our tax base. Our tax base has really grown significantly over the last 5 years. because of development that's occurred within the community. So, yeah, I mean, it's putting the right policies and people and practices in place, and showing the rating agencies how we've done that and where we intend to go. So we actually have another bond rating coming up this Thursday. Our rating's called Standard & Poor's, and this will be for a small issuance related to the water capital improvement plan that we got approval for at town meeting. So,
Excellent.
yeah, now that we are AAA rated, and we continue to show Standard & Poor's that we're doing what we told them to do, that pressure is not as great. But, we still have to keep our eye on the ball and fund things like general stabilization and things like that you've supported through the Finance Committee.
Do you see any risks for maintaining that rating at this point?
Not really at this point. Our reserve levels as a percentage of our operating budget and debt continue to grow. We're building those reserves, and we've done a good job. I think the biggest risk is out of our control. Significant global or national economic downturn.
Right.
We could face challenges, but we're still in a really strong position. And we're in a really strong position as it relates to other local governments, because real estate taxes are our primary revenue,
Right.
and they're not so elastic when it comes to general economic conditions in comparison to a lot of other cities and towns that rely upon a sales tax or an income tax. So of course, when the economy turns and people stop spending money or earning money, then they're in a bit of a more challenging place than we are.
But then, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But then, since you mentioned real estate, that's something I wanted to go into. At the time of our last 2.5 override, it was recognized that there were structural defects in the way that tax collection is in the town, because we're more of a real estate or property tax oriented town, and we need to move to commercial stuff. But what about the risk that how do you balance those two in the sense, we want to commercialize, we want to basically improve the amount of taxes we can do to basically improve a lot of the things we want to do in town to fund that stuff, like for example 2.5 override. How do we fix those issues, maintaining like a more of a real estate oriented town as opposed to a commercial town?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the largest challenge associated with taxes in the community is Proposition 2.5 itself, right? So it by itself says that we cannot increase the tax levy by more than 2.5% on any from year over year.
Right.
So that 2.5%, especially in the times of inflation that we've been in, when we've seen even some of the most fundamental social services at the federal level, like Social Security, increase by 8.7%, that's where it's really clear that Proposition 2.5 has kind of overstayed its welcome, and it's just no longer affected. It was it was put into place in 1980, and it's kind of served its life within Massachusetts. And I'm not advocating for going from only being able to raise the tax levy by 2.5% to an unlimited amount, but there has to be some recognition that it takes more than 2.5% increase year over year to be able to provide standard core services that our residents expect. So when we approach the override, we basically set up a model where we were raising more taxes in the early years than we actually needed, so that we could, build out, for a longer duration of time. And in some ways that's not fair, but that's the only way to overcome the system that we're in right now. But I think that you're going to start to see at the state level advocacy for change for Proposition 2.5, and that would be monumental. But every time there's a bond bill or a new tax program or a discussion about education aid, aid. You see municipalities through the MMA at the State House begging for every penny. And that's because we don't have the discretion at the local level to really raise enough money easily that we need to just sustain operations. Certainly with the Proposition 2.5 override that we passed in 2021, we've been able to expand services as promised. But we're now getting into the latter years of that where we're just maintaining service levels. So, it's Proposition 2.5 and asking for an override in some ways has become seen as a failure of a local government's inability to manage itself. And I completely disagree with that, because I think the premise in and of itself where 2.5% more revenue year over year is sufficient is impossible to live within, especially in times like this.
Special town meeting, there were articles where you were increasing budgets, and you gave a really good explanation to us as to why and how. But I think the public might want to know why you were increasing budgets at a special town meeting in October. How did that happen?
Yeah, so the reason we were able to do that is because of the significant tax base growth within the community. So we're allowed to increase this underlying tax levy by 2.5%. So your house exists in the community, so technically the amount of money that we raise from all the existing buildings in the community can only go up by 2.5%. But if there's a new structure or an addition is put on your house, then we can capture all that new taxation. So the last few years have been some of the strongest, especially in the commercial sector, of growth within the community. As projects like the sale of the Allen Farm property, Centec North, is now built out and there's buildings on site. So all that new real property is taxed and has exceeded our expectations. In fact, in the last year alone, we've had $160 million in new real estate value, new buildings come into the community. So those additional resources have enabled us to do a couple of things, add some money into the general stabilization account, but also ask community to help us in areas where we're struggling. And one of the biggest areas has been wage competitiveness in a couple of positions, right? So again, if we could only increase people's wages by 2.5%, because there's generally that additional money available every year, we haven't been able to keep up. So we asked for a little additional revenue in particular positions that we haven't been able to fill for 6 months or more. And we would get to the offer stage with an individual, especially for the assistant planner position. And they just said, well, I'm going to go take this one for 10 grand more. And, we're talking about positions that we're offering in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, and $10,000 is, 20%, wage difference. And I mean, who would you ever not advise to take 20% more, wage? So
that's very concerning.
Yeah.
Right.
To get talent to help run our town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the other part of that is when you were budgeting last winter, you weren't budgeting on what we might get for money.
Correct.
So you budgeted on what you knew we had.
Yes.
And so from that time to now, when we had town meeting in October, it was concrete money. It wasn't
Correct.
what we might get.
Yeah, I never want to be in a position where, because we're starting the budget process, right? We're going to be into, the finance committee, Vikram's committee here in November, and say, this is how much money we think we have starting next July 1. So that's, we're not fortune tellers. We have good, financial models, but I never want to go before the finance committee or town meeting and say, I think I'm going to get $1 million here, and then in the fall go, oops, we got 800,000, right? So we're going to be conservative in our estimates, and then when we can prove that we actually have those funds because of the benefit of time and real information, then we will come back to town meeting and ask for their approval to spend it where it makes sense.
So talking about continuing on commercial activity, Kevin, there's been a lot of activity in your department as far as bringing technology companies into the town. And I was wondering if you could share with everybody
Sure.
what's happening on that
Yeah,
space?
so Centec North is, kind of the hottest area of the market right now. So I can share one thing really concrete and then, tell you that we're still working in another area. So there's two main buildings at Centec North, and one of them has an occupant of about one building, which is a little over 100,000 square feet, has an occupant of about 40,000 square feet. And we've worked with Northbridge, who's the property owner. They bought it from the town. And they've actually signed a lease with WuXi Biologics, which is a biologic manufacturer, a biopharma manufacturer that is in Worcester. And they're going to use about 58,000 square feet in Centec North for cold storage, chemical storage, and some pre-manufacturing processes. So it'll bring good higher lease amounts, a decent number of jobs, and a good space.
What's the name of the company?
It's WUXI, WuXi Biologics. And then the other larger space that's up there is 196,000 square feet. Northbridge is getting really close to signing a lease. They're on the 5th or 6th iteration with another kind of high-tech company. I don't even know the name of the company yet, but I've been able to stay in the loop with them. This is actually going to be the space that other PI company was going to go in, but they couldn't make that deal work. So I'm actually excited because this new company is probably going to take more space than the original conversation was with PI. So I think PI is a great company. I'd love to have them somewhere else in the community. It didn't seem to work out there at Centec North with them in Northbridge, but Northbridge developers tells me that within the next few weeks they will have a lease finalized with a major high-tech company. So that's everything that I know at this point.
There are a lot of fringe benefits for these companies in terms of for the community. Like
Yeah.
number of the activity in
Yeah.
restaurants, hotels,
Yeah.
so many other things that
Yeah.
could help build our economy, our local economy.
Yeah, and just having companies like that in town and being able to build partnerships in the schools,
Right,
and it's also from a physical development site, these buildings were built as flex space, but clearly with the ability to service an Amazon or some type of logistics company. And Northbridge has, I have to say, been a true partner to the town and hasn't settled for the first company that's walked through the door. They really see a vision for that section of South Street with Charles River, and and building out a more high tech type of environment. And that means a lot, right? That's important to us. They're not just looking to turn the space over as soon as they possibly can. They see a vision for the town and are willing to work with us on this site and hopefully others in the future. So
Are there any environmental concerns that the town folks should be concerned about?
not in these spaces, no. I mean, there's no manufacturing that's going to be going on with WuXi. It's just preliminary stuff, and their storage is all will meet all codes and regulations, and these are modern buildings with air filtration systems, and everything will be fit out at or above the required levels. So
That's
we're just at the start of those processes, but I don't have any concerns.
And those businesses will go into the buildings that are already up.
Correct. Yes.
They'll
Yep.
retrofit the inside to
Yep.
what.
Yeah, I mean, those buildings are just open shells pretty much. You walk in there and you feel like an ant. That's how big they are. So
But they're not intrusive
No.
to the neighborhood. As you drive by,
absolutely.
it's in a good place.
yeah, it is a good place with access to Route 20 and being able to get trucks in and out when needed, and Route 9 for that matter. Our commercial corridors are truly an asset. If we're going to continue to increase the amount of commercial development that's in the community, these are the right places to do it.
Do you have any number in terms of potential revenue increase that we could get if we had more commercial activity like this in the town?
I think that when you look at a site like whether it's the Edgemere mixed use development or this Centec Park North, I'll take the latter. Centec Park North is probably, has a property value of somewhere around $50 million, from those two buildings alone. It will grow a little bit as we use a cash basis whenever commercial spaces are rented out. Right. So we'll do the analysis and use that value versus just the pure real estate value. So they have a significant impact. If you're talking $50 million, you're talking over $300,000 in annual property tax revenue to the community.
Nice.
It's pretty significant.
Yes.
So there was illegal dumping on Bow Street, and they caught the people with hidden cameras. Mm-hmm. And because if you drove on those streets, you would see it was really getting disgusting.
Yep.
And they had to go back and clean up. Mm-hmm. I drove by there this past week, and I noticed that they may have cleaned up by taking the bulk out, but they still left a lot of junk along the sides of the road. So they should have to go back and rake it out.
There's more to come. So there's actually, that was a multi-year effort between the state police and the Shrewsbury Police Department and the DEP. And as of this morning, because there was another trial this morning, there's been 5 convictions out of 12 people or entities that have been identified. And the settlement's the wrong word, but the findings this morning is another $5,000 fine, and all those that revenue will come to the town. So
some of it goes to the state.
Some of it goes to the state, but we're getting that $5,000 in this instance all to the town. So we'll continue to work to clean that up and ensure future dumping doesn't occur. But a big thank you to Nick Rapecta and the Highway Department and Shrewsbury Police Department for their efforts along the way.
There was a busy little corner between the crimes and the storage area, and then Bow Street right next to it.
Yep.
So is the lawsuit with Old Beal still ongoing? Mm-hmm. And with Market Basket, they want to put storage units in behind Market. Is it next to Market Basket or behind Market Basket?
There's a site kind of if you would drive through the traffic light intersection, kind of back to the right, further back there. Yeah.
Where's the retail I thought was going to go in there? All we have is a Starbucks, which I don't drink the coffee, and Market Basket is awesome, absolutely awesome, and a bank.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to have, and then there's all that housing, but where's the retail?
Well, Market Basket ended up taking one of the retail spots for their liquor store. So that at one time that was going to be a different potential business, but they decided.
What a busy place!
It is really busy.
It's a great grocery store.
Yep.
Have you been there?
Not yet.
Oh, you should go. You're missing out.
It's on my list.
And now with the high school expansion that is being reviewed by the state, we would get. They would pay for. Is it 80%, 85%?
52%.
Oh, what happened to the 80% that I thought I read about?
So no, so I mean our standard reimbursement rate through MSBA is 52%, and this project, which falls through their major construction, would be at that level.
And so when the school was built in 2002, it was built to hold 1,475 students. According to today's standards, which I don't know what that means, it's supposed to hold 1,250 students. But yet in 2020, which was 3 years ago, it was holding 1,900 students.
Right. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a sense of urgency there to keep that high on the list of projects.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it is high. Even it's a high priority, even at the number that it was built for. That difference between those two numbers is the thoughts on technology and scientific spaces on a per pupil basis, so that really changes that. But we're gonna keep going in the process, right? There's plenty of opportunity for residents to weigh in and understand what those costs would be and how much money directly we'd be responsible for at the end if the state gives us the 52%.
So it took us 10 years to get Shrewsbury High School approved. because the townspeople wouldn't believe that we needed it. By the time the students moved in, it was already at capacity. And what I'm hoping is that whatever addition is put on, that it's not for, this is what we need today. And that just like we do with other building projects, is this going to last 50 years or not? I would hope that it's built with the future in mind and not just here and now. Will the state approve that?
Yeah, they will. Just
sense?
like Beale. I think Beale is the first school project that probably, well, that wasn't at capacity on the first day.
So it's more futuristic.
Yeah, it's more that 50-year horizon and able to manage any growth within the community associated with it. And of course, the other challenge is that, on an average class by class basis, we now have 30 more students because of the inability to send folks out to the vocational technical school at Assabet or anywhere else.
So you have 30 more students for that, and you have
30 per grade level.
Per
so
grade
120.
level. So you have 120, plus you have the migrant families that have added to it, and I don't know how many have gone to the high school. But there's other factors in there, and there always will be. So I hope that project gets moved along quickly. But how does that impact what needs to be done at Town Hall, and what will happen now that the Patrick's Motor site kind of fizzled out?
Yeah, so
for the light department,
we're in the process of going back through those conversations. Those needs still exist. And my only commitment would be is that we'll do it with the least impact on the tax rate as possible, and share whatever those impacts are going to be at the time, and be transparent as possible. And we're not going to propose something. We can take a more measured approach moving forward when we need to ask for another override. The last time we did it, we had just done Beale and then the police station, and then the override, and
the high school was falling off.
Yeah.
So that one was going off the books.
We just didn't have the opportunity to be as strategic as I would have liked to have been, because then the needs were more immediate.
But now that the light department has pointed out their needs, is it more important to support them in finding space somewhere, because that would actually buy time for what the town hall needs, because we'd acquire all of the light department space?
I think that whatever it is, it just needs to be collaborative and mutually beneficial. That has been the relationship historically with Selco. Selco has, they paid for the original town hall in the 60s. They paid for the addition in the 90s, building space for themselves to the benefit of the community. And certainly their last endeavor was a little more arm's length, and it was, at a new facility at a new location. And I'm not sure that needs to happen, but whatever it is, and I promise, we're working together to define mutual space needs from DPW and town administration and Selco operations administration, and trying to find the most cost-effective path.
Wouldn't it be interesting if you could acquire the land from University of Massachusetts?
Yes.
And that could benefit the town in so many ways. You'd have a connector road. You could have space for the light department to build out what they need, which would then give you more space in town hall without having to renovate so quickly.
And a bigger municipal campus, kind of everything tied together. It's not currently being taxed, and
so we have to talk to UMass.
Yep, we're trying.
Are there key people that you need to?
Yeah, there are, and we've engaged with them in the past, and Senator Moore and Representative Kane and Lieutenant Governor Polito at the time have always been at the centerpiece of orchestrating those conversations. UMass has been a little bit more of a challenge, and I would like to figure out a way for them to find value in some type of arrangement with the town.
Well, seeing as how Congressman McGovern was so helpful with UMass and the VA being built and all of that development, maybe we should talk to him.
That's a good point. Yep.
So
So it's not only the high school, my understanding, that has to be expanded, but it's the middle schools as well.
Right now, the biggest challenge is the high school. I think we have a little bit more time at the middle schools. Certainly Oak, being the former high school, is starting to age. We have some systems and operational needs. We're going to redo the windows and things like that in the near future, but the key focus is the high school. And then honestly, they're doing the elementary school level study, so we need to figure out elementary school and what our approach is going to be with that. As some of the buildings, again, these projects take so long, as you both can appreciate, right? So we may be here. We know we applied in the spring of this year, 2023, for a high school project. We'll find out if we get moved to the next round this December. We would ask, for money to do that next spring, and then take a year to design it. So we're really looking at 2027, 2028 to open that new building. And, then the conversation would be had about what's next, but
It'll
there'll
be here
always
before
be
you
something.
know it.
Yeah, there's always something. So,
But
yeah.
then coming to the one of the final things I wanted to talk about, with all this expansion and growth and all that, one of our primary objectives in the strategic plan is sustainability. So the environment, the green cover, the number of people in town, the schools expanding at a rate. I mean, we talked about 1,900 people in
Yeah.
1,900 students in the high school. So
That was 2020.
that was 2020. So what do you feel about that? How do we balance that as a town, and how do you think you can balance it as the town manager?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever I look at it from a town operations standpoint, we have plenty of opportunities to do what you would do personally or in a private business, right? We can electrify our fleet. We can improve the energy efficiency of our existing buildings. We can start to turn away from those fossil fuels like natural gas in our operations. And our biggest enabler through that is Selco. I think where it gets a little bit more challenging is whenever we start to deal in the private property and the additional development and the clearing of land and those things. So, we have a conservation commission, but conservation commissions in Massachusetts are charged with protecting wetlands, right? They don't have this more global energy conservation, climate, focus to them. Some cities and towns have begun to undertake initiatives that impose local rules on, whether you can connect to, fossil fuels for heating or other energy sources. Some communities like Wellesley have required more stringent regulations when it comes to tree cover, depleting tree cover and clearing of lots and land. So I think that it is our responsibility to work with the community and make sure that we can preserve what it is that we can in town and do our part in climate change and in mitigating and being resilient. The summer's been more wet and it's been more hot at times than we've ever experienced. So we just need to do our part to prevent that from continuing forever and respond to what's going on a day-to-day basis. So we definitely have a role to play.
Right.
And this isn't passing the buck, but to be honest with you, it's as aggressive as the community wants us to be, right? It's that conversation. Do you want us to be a quote unquote Lexington, Concord, Brookline, and be at the kind of leading edge and saying, look, you're not going to connect to natural gas anymore in town, and it's only going to be, electricity, and we're going to adopt a specialized energy code. We can certainly go in that direction. And we would advise the community what those impacts are. There's cost impacts and there's development impacts and there's other considerations, and we have a really good team that can advise on what those impacts are. But if that's where the community wants us to go, then that's the direction that we would head in. And there's counter arguments to that, and but we would look forward to folks' feedback on that.
Did I hear correctly that on the Market Basket property, there's a section where they can't touch it because there's Indian artifacts there?
I'm not sure about that property.
That's what the man presenting about the storage units in the
Okay,
back. That he said
perhaps.
something, and I thought, how did I miss that one?
Yeah.
And
First time I'm hearing.
Now that
Yeah.
you say that, yes, that absolutely is the case. I do remember that now. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
So what do we do about it? Just don't touch it, but
Yeah.
should we honor it in some way?
Well, that's a good question. It's private
Or
property.
designate
but,
it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's private property, but we could, we can, that's a good
You know, for
question.
people to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that something the CPC could take some
Yeah.
action on?
Yeah.
given-
Potentially. That's another
Yeah.
great idea. Yeah. We'll have to look into
And
it.
then you have pump station buildings and sewer station work and applications. So there's always something happening with water and sewer beyond.
Yeah, a major sewer initiative with the Rolfe Avenue pump station and the sewer main that connects Rolfe Avenue and Maple Avenue. You know, that's a $10 million plus project that we will be undertaking. It's not exciting and it's not an expansion, but it's
necessary.
critical. And we talked about it at the finance committee the other night. A significant portion of the town sewage flows through that
Yeah.
one section, so
And
it
then
needs to be reliable.
the new Sewell Street well in the home farm wells, what's happening with that?
I believe that the new home farm well is commissioned and online, and Sewell's going through the final approval process. Yeah.
And then you have the McGovern property. You have 2 big buildings there now.
Yeah, it's huge.
When will that be ready for business?
I don't have a specific timeline. But
I'll bet they're going to pave before.
yeah,
December.
Yeah, they'll definitely pave. McGovern is pretty much done. I don't know when they're actually going to receive their final CO. I haven't been there yet, but I've been told the level of complexity. They have a paint booth in there, and the integration of the ventilation system and the fire alarm system and what happens when the fire alarm goes off and what stays on and what turns off is incredibly complicated, and very grateful for the technical expertise that we have in Patty Sheehan and her team in the building department, and Chief Vona and Deputy Chief Colby in the fire department, to be able to keep folks safe and get the business open at the same time.
And Patrick Motors on the corner of South Street, what's happening there?
They're still going through their state permitting process, so no new updates from them, but they continue to work towards that.
And what is the all-in Shrewsbury Climate and Resiliency Plan that got us $100,000 from the Executive Office of Energy and Environment?
So that is the main strategy that we're going to use to reduce the town operating impact on the climate, and reduce our carbon emissions, document our carbon emissions, reduce our carbon emissions, and find a path forward to be more sustainable in our operations.
Now, I don't know how you can answer this question in less than 30 seconds, but MBTA communities with multifamily zoning, they're holding the town's feet to the fire, not just Shrewsbury, but all towns, because if you want grant money, this is what you have to do. So they're forcing us to put in more multifamily units that we don't want.
Multifamily zoning.
But we want the money from the state, so what do we do?
Yeah, it's a
Figure
good
that
end
in
around.
less than 10 seconds.
It's a good end around local government preemption. So the state's taking a very heavy hand in trying to address the housing crisis.
So time's up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. And thank you
you.
so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Vikram.
All clear.